Lord, for we pray it in your name, Jesus our Lord. Amen. Hope. Well, first let's talk soccer, because I know that's pretty much everything that everybody's thinking about. And all you soccer nuts, you probably realize that Canada, for the first time in 36 years, is in the FIFA World Cup over there in Qatar. And so, it's the first time since '86. We have lost our first game, I think it was the day before yesterday, against Belgium. But to be fair, Canada's ranked 41st going into this, 41st, and Belgium was ranked second, so come on. Now, today, right now, we're playing Croatia, and you'll probably be wanting to run right home and get that on. Now, they're only ranked 14th against our 41st place, so, we have a bit of credit. Melissa's watching even as we speak, and Canada has scored a goal, which is actually pretty...
In 7 seconds, the fastest goal.
Oh, my goodness.
Sorry.
Hope is springing eternal. Actually, I call this message "Hope Springs Eternal." So, Melissa's tuned right in there to the soccer. And the loss to Belgium was only 1-0. These games are not like football games or with big scores. They're low. So I mean, and Canada is really well represented just in spectators over there. We've got literally we disproportionately to how much our rankings in the world. We have literally thousands and thousands of people have flown over to be in the stands, and they've got Canadian flags waving and the whole thing. So there's a lot of hope there. And COVID-19 been going on for a while. Kind of hope it'd be done with. I think we all are. The hope is that get done with that and we'll get back to normal. And there's this thing happening these days, incomprehensibly to me. Inflation. Like, I don't understand. I was getting my gas at the pump yesterday, and I knew the lady getting her gas next to me, and I said, and the gas had gone down again. I said, I don't know why. It goes up and down for mysterious reasons. Some of you are economists and financial experts, and you probably understand this. But by and large, prices have just shot up, and they seem to keep climbing, and what's that about? So, although we have had this happen before, and we've noticed things have leveled out or gone back down and stuff like that. So, So we've got hope. We're not like... of course, we hope the war will soon be over in Ukraine. By golly. It's been going on since what, March this year? So many, many months. February, there you go. And we hope that the world will figure out how to handle climate change and global warming. And all that. I mean, we hope a lot of things. Now, you may be doubtful, or we may be doubtful, maybe somewhat skeptical, perhaps a little bit negative about some of these things. I mean, after all, we've been disappointed before, right? If you've lived at all in life, you've had hopes that have been dashed. That's one of the things that I've always tried to get into my kids when they were small, because it's funny when children are little, they'll get so excited that something is sure to happen, and you say, well, you're not sure that's going to happen. And they get so built up, and then they're just crushed when it doesn't happen. It's kind of a wonder of children, but it's also kind of, you can see it building, and you can see, oh, no. It's not, what happened, that doesn't work out. So, you try to teach kind of, what's the word? Control their expectations a little bit. But, so we've had our expectations dashed, we've been disappointed, but yet, for the most part, we harbor hope for all those things, right? Even if it's secretly, or even perhaps unconsciously. I mean, just because, you kind of think that, well, this is never going to end, you sort of hope it will. It's funny how we are. We're built that way. So, what if someone came along with a voice of authority and declared that your hope wasn't going to be disappointed? That diseases, including COVID and any others you might think of, it will be done. They'll all be done. That poverty and inequality and all the financial mess of our world, that's all going to be over with and done and cease. Wars are going to be a thing of the past, and the weather will always be perfect. major concern to Canadians. Canadians talk about weather more than anybody else, apparently. And not just that. All wrongs will be righted. All hurts will be healed. Physically, mentally, emotionally. Everyone will live together in love. And death will be no more. No more death. Now, what if this someone backed up their declaration by themselves coming back to life after being dead for a couple of days? That would lend some credibility to this grand hope. So yeah, you guessed it. This someone is Jesus Christ. Well, let's think about this passage that Janice read a little bit here. It starts with, no one knows about that day or hour, not even the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. What's he talking about, right? Now, so we've kind of taken this passage a little bit out of context. So that's verse 36 of chapter 24 of the Gospel of Matthew. So we have to go back a few verses to verse 30, and this is what he's talking about. He says, at that time, the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the nations of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. So that event that Jesus declares will happen, is what he's talking about. He says, no one even knows about that day or hour, not even the angels or the Son, but only the Father. So Jesus' knowledge was somewhat limited when he was here with us. Now, in this passage, all the hope of which I have just, spoken and described, the hopes, the big hope, the grand hope, it's not necessarily in that passage, but it is in the Bible. And, if you take the broad sweep of the New Testament and the whole Bible, its tenor, its theme is the theme of hope, always, always, always. In fact, the word hope crops up in just about every book in the New Testament, often, both the verb and the noun. At one point I did a study on that, but I just don't know. It's there quite a bit. And even in Paul's letter, the very famous 1 Corinthians 13, it's one of the big three. Remember at the end of that he says, and so now faith, hope, and love abide. These three. But the greatest of these is love. The greatest is love. But hope is way up there. So hope is huge. Now, interestingly, so the big thing in this passage, of course, is Christ's return in power. And it's interesting how he describes it. But I'm going to get to that. So first of all, he does a lot of talk here about as it was in the days of Noah. There's 3 verses where he talks about Noah's flood. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. This is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Now, there's a lot in that, and a lot of this passage is warning, warning. So, but be that as it may, Jesus is implying that whatever's going to happen is going to be much kind of similar to the flood situation. Now, the flood was a disaster that was super destructive, but at the end of it, God brought about new creation. He recreated the world, essentially. So, whoever was saved upon the ark, the creatures and the people, from them, he populated the earth again. So it's a story about, yes, judgment, but also about God's plan to bring about new creation. And I think that Jesus is implying something about that by using that as his Old Testament passage, if you will, in this passage. Now, so the big event, of course, here is his return, the return of Jesus. The way he describes it, it's not a small thing. He says, they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. He will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the 4 winds. His elect being, those who belong to him, those who have, put their trust in him, those who are his children. So this is very grandiose. It's very dramatic, which is kind of unlike the first time he came. You recall that? So when we think of Advent, we tend to think, oh yeah, it's leading up to Christmas. So the remembrance of the birth of Christ. And of course, the birth of Christ was very, on the QT, very quiet, very, very humble beginnings. He was, came as a baby, which is utterly helpless, and I got flies. He came as a baby. It must be getting warm in here this week. So he came, as a baby, born to not a very well-to-do family, it would seem, and laid in a manger, which is where animals eat, their food. And basically nobody knew what was going on. It was very, very quiet. It was revealed to a few people. We're going to hear about this, I guess, as the weeks up to Christmas unfold, like shepherds who were, considered pretty much the lowest of the low, and magi who were Gentiles. They got to know something about it. But the average person did not know. And even after that, Jesus basically grew up in, what's the word? Anonymity. And anonymity. And he, until he started his ministry, in which he gathered quite a following, but he wasn't, it was his teachings and his miracles and his healings that brought people to him. It wasn't that he just looked like a movie star kind of thing. In fact, it tells us, I think it's Isaiah 53, it said he grew up before us, and there was nothing that was, desirable or comely about him. He wasn't, just this attractive guy that stood out from the crowd. He looked like all the rest of the people. But then he did gather this following, and yet they all abandoned him, when push came to shove. And basically he was on his own by the time he had a lot of enemies, and he got crucified. So that's the story of his first coming. Of course, he came back to life again, as I've already mentioned. So that's the story of his first. So the second coming is to be quite dramatically different. And it's taught in many places in the New Testament. Beginning of book of Acts, all through, it's in, it's referred to or alluded to in pretty much all the books in the New Testament. And this idea that he will come back with, it says, and he started it with coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. So it'd be very, very dramatic. And we're to expect that. There's a lot of speculation around this subject about what we should believe or what we should not believe about the end times, final things. And now some people claim to have a handle on it and understand it and comprehend it, and they may or not. So some say, for instance, there's a millennial reign of Christ on earth to figure into this whole thing, a 1,000-year reign. Have you heard about the millennium? Yes, okay, you've heard of that. Some believe in a secret rapture of Christians first. Remember, there's a whole movie series called Left Behind. Left Behind? And that's got that whole idea that suddenly Jesus is going to, well, I guess he's going to come back, or he's going to zip all the Christians out of earth, and you just disappear and your clothes will kind of drop on the ground, I guess. And, okay. And then everybody else has to kind of muddle through without the Christians. It's an interesting idea. It's out there. Who is the Antichrist? When will they show up? When is Armageddon? You've heard of Armageddon? Will there be a nuclear war? What about plagues that are worse than COVID-19? A one-world government, maybe? Anyway, all that is rather muddy for me. Maybe it's crystal for some. It's muddy for me, and it's not terribly clear in Scripture. But one thing is crystal, and it's said over and over again, that Jesus is coming back, and that he will usher in a new creation, a new heavens, and a new earth that is perfect. And that's what we're called to expect and called to look forward to. That's the big hope. So, but his concern in this passage, interestingly, according to this passage, is that we be ready whenever that might be. That we be ready. And he's quite clearly, a couple of times in here, he says, no one knows that day, not even the Son. And at the end, he says, you also must be ready because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. So all the expectations and beliefs that people throw around, okay, but still we don't know. We don't know. It's up in the air, so to speak. But his concern is that we be ready, we be watchful, we be spiritually awake, which I think means we be basically humbly living out our faith through prayer, through worship, and through service. When we celebrate the Lord's Supper, that's what we're doing. We're humbly coming to the table of the Lord. And whether he comes back soon or in 10,000 years from now, we're to keep doing it. We're to keep gathering around the table, gathering together and remembering the Lord's death, as Paul says, and we're going to read it in our liturgy in a minute. He says, we proclaim the Lord's death until he comes, until he comes. So right after church, you can head home, turn on your TV, watch the rest of the World Cup. Canada game against Croatia. And you can hope for Canada. But in Jesus, we have such a much grander, surer hope. Let us pray.